Farzy, it seems fitting that you have an on-air sign behind you because I feel like in the month of May, you're always on. There's no off time for you. So I'm just curious, at 10 o'clock as you begin to get closer to your bedtime, what did you do today for Farwell for Hire?
Thank you for asking the question. And thank you for, again, wearing the shirt, which I still have not had the courage to do on this podcast because I think it's a little bit weird. Although I wear it to work every day because there's Rogers TV. I just want the exposure for the campaign. I know. Why am I not?
Do you have a couple shirts?
I might have more. Yes, I have more than one, but
I only have one.
It's funny because today, as we record this, we have just passed the midway point of the month of May. And I got a message. This one meant a lot to me. So forgive me for the little bit of a story that comes with it. But it came from a friend of mine whose son has cystic fibrosis. And Wade, he's not even 10 yet. That's terrible. I don't know his exact age. But anyway, we met when Wader was just a young kid, and his parents had just learned about this diagnosis, and they're like, "Oh my God, what do we do?" And they had heard about this campaign from some guy in Kitchener. They live out Stratford way, and anyway, one thing leads to another, and we end up connecting, and we've done some fundraising together over the years. And this family, the Van Allens, who own Van Allen Insurance in Listowel. So shout out to our friends in Listy, and they've got an office in Guelph too. Anyway, Shane and Sarah and their incredible son Wade are just a lovely family, and we connected over, a not so lovely thing, to be honest. But I got a note from Shane just today, and he said, "Hey, halfway through the month, how you holding up?" Because Shane knows what's what. Like, I'm an old man, and I'm doing manual labor after my radio show every day, and that's not a lot because my radio show involves a lot of sitting around. But it was just nice, and you just made me think of the memory when you asked the question, because to hear from him just kind of randomly, knowing that I do this campaign every year, was kind of neat and heartwarming for me. So the shorter answer to your question, but I did some gardening. I planted some small trees and some shrubs, and I moved around some patio furniture, and I transplanted hostas, which this is language I never thought I'd be using in my adult life, Poper, but that's what I did. And I put them into a recycling bin and loaded them onto my truck and drove them down the street to the neighbor's place and then replanted them. So that was kind of my afternoon. A lot of digging in the dirt. Wasn't too bad in terms of heavy lifting, but that's what we do. We go out and we do something to make some money for cystic fibrosis. So there you go.
I feel like everybody has transported a hosta because they're uncontrollable and they just take over the earth. So everyone tries to get rid of them, and the best way to do it is pawning it off on someone else.
It's a great point.
I feel like everyone's transported hostas.
And real quick, because by the time this is released, from the time of recording, I can tell you, go get your 50-50 tickets. Rangers5050.com. Our jackpot last year was $113,000. I can't forecast where we're at yet, but I'm going to bet you, because I promise you, this is being recorded before the draw even starts. I'll bet you if you went to Rangers5050.com right now, it's going to be at least $10,000. Let's get that jackpot going. I want to give somebody lots of money. And of course, the other 50% is going to cystic fibrosis.
Well, if I don't win, it's going to be criminal. And you know what you should do when you spot a criminal, Mike?
You know what? That's a really good point made by you, Poper. Waterloo Region Crime Stoppers. Okay. Of course, there's probably a Crime Stoppers in your community. We want to give a shout out to the hardworking volunteers who are involved in managing Waterloo Region Crime Stoppers. Just like any other Crime Stoppers organization, 1-800-222-TIPS. You remain anonymous. If you see something that police should know about, if your tip leads to an arrest, you could be awarded up to $2,000 for that tip that leads to that arrest. I'm going to take you even a little bit further behind the scenes. I've done some work with the board at Waterloo Region Crime Stoppers. I'm going to tell you what, like, the money is pretty good. I'm not asking you to, get goofy. The tips all have to be vetted. There's a process, but you can make some money, and this is helping keep our communities safer. It's helping us all stay engaged. 1-800-222-TIPS, up to $2,000 for tips that lead to an arrest, or online at waterloocrimestoppers.com. Remember, these are volunteers. They do fundraising, and it's helping out in the community.
Yeah, you're doing a good deed when you call. It's just the tip is an added award for doing a good job. Speaking of awards for doing a good job.
Well done.
James, thank you. James Richmond, the head coach of the Mississauga Steelheads, has been named OHL Coach of the Year. Your thoughts?
I think they had a lot of candidates. Obviously, Ted Dent in Flint, who was the Western representative, and a lot of talk, of course, now Jay McKee in Hamilton, who's just back into the Ontario Hockey League and has his team into the Eastern Conference Final. But when you look at the sum of all parts, how many people coming into this season had the Mississauga Steelheads to finish where they finished, had the Mississauga Steelheads to have the best goaltending duo in the Ontario Hockey League? And I think a ton of credit for the number of wins on the season, the number of points over a season ago. You got to look at the guy, and don't forget he was the dual portfolio head coach, GM. So well done, JR, and richly deserved from where I'm sitting.
Imagine the amount of work he had to do this year. It's like his whole year is your May. You know what I mean? Like GM, exactly. Head coach, COVID, having to find these players. Which guys are you going to have? They pull a goalie in from out west. Plus, then you have the trade deadline. And then right after that, you're fighting for a division title. And then you have the playoffs and then the drafts in there and the import draft. What? Like, and this guy got his team to where they were, you know, one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, you know, huge improvement from where people thought they were going to be this year. Lots of other people that you could give a stick tap to it, names you've already mentioned. There's a lot of good coaches in this league. But I just want to, you talked about Ted Dent. I think we both owe the Flint Firebirds a quick apology because we completely underestimated you this playoffs. So enjoy your Western Conference final. And at this rate, I'm picking Windsor, but at this rate, you'll probably make the OHL final. So good for you guys. What a year in Flint. I completely underestimated you, but Ted Dent and everyone down there deserves all the credit. They smashed, I think, every franchise record they have this year. Yeah, the guy we're about to hear from on this week's episode of OHL Stories was a member of the team that I think a lot of people thought were going to be a sexy first round upset over Flint because all the talk was, oh, they piled up all those wins versus Erie and Saginaw. And then Ted Dent and Flint and Brennan Othman and the rest of them just went out and said, yeah, screw you. We are a good hockey team. And I feel like I have to apologize to everybody because I think, if not leading, certainly right on the bandwagon of it's going to be the year of the upset. And what do we have in the conference finals? It's 1 versus 3 in the West and 1 versus 2 in the East. I'll just sit over here and shut up. Yeah, not many upsets. No. But when you win humanitarian of the year in the OHL, that usually says that you're using your platform for good, like Mike does for Farwell for Hire. Thanks, Mark. Again. No problem. Mark Wooley uses that platform for Wooley's Warriors, sending kids to camp that have diabetes. He has diabetes, and it was a former teammate and captain that kind of got the bug in his ear. And now as Mark leaves this league after 5 years, 4 seasons as a captain, hopefully he's the captain that puts the worm in someone else's ear, continuing to do good. The humanitarian of the year in the Ontario Hockey League, Mark Wooley. Well, before we talk about humanitarian of the year, which obviously is a great way to cap a season, Mark, I got to be honest, you and the Owen Sound Attack were my sexy upset pick in the first round. I don't want to, rub salt in anything, but how tough was that 7-gamer versus the Flint Firebirds?
Yeah, obviously it was a great series. Both teams gave it their all. So, we came up on the short end of the stick, but really proud of the boys. We were one of the youngest teams, I think, in the league this year. And, just the growth and development from that young squad throughout the season, for us to battle as hard as we did in the playoffs and, go right to that last buzzer, something I'm really proud of, being an older guy on that team and kind of, leading them, for as much as I could throughout the season. To see that development was outstanding, and they have a special group coming in the next couple of years. So
we'll get to that award in just a second, but I'm just curious, when you look back on your OHL career, 5 years, 4 seasons, what do you think about?
Just all the memories, I think. And honestly, it's the stuff away from the rink that you remember more, I think. All the road trips, the bus trips with the boys and the hotels, just whatever it is. But you're with those guys every single day for 9 months. And, I have friendships that are going to last a lifetime from every single team that I played on in those 5 years. So I think that's the biggest thing that that comes to mind for me is just all the relationships that I was able to make, and all those connections I'll have for, the rest of my life.
I wanted to drill in just a little bit further on that young team you talked about, Mark, because as a couple of guys that broadcast for a team in the same division, we've been looking at this Owen Sound attack team and saying, whoo-wee, like the next couple to a few years are going to be pretty tough games up there in the Bayshore. As one of the older guys, what's it like for you watching like the Makacheks and the Petrovskis and that Barlow kid do what they did?
Yeah, it's really special. I mean, I was lucky enough to be roommates with Bars this year, and he's a very special kid. Like he's gonna make lots of money one day. So seeing him have such a successful rookie season, and other guys, Gwendon. I mean, all of our rookies were our team this year. So to see them finally kind of get comfortable in the league, and I mean, I found out towards the end of the season with Bars that out of his 30 goals, like 26 of them were 5-on-5. Like I had no idea about that. So like they have a very special group. Yeah, it was pretty cool to be a part of. Obviously wish maybe I could have one more year and be a part of something special there. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna stay in touch with those guys and watch them over the next couple of years for sure.
Just tell the Owen Sound attack your name is Mike Wooler. And you never know, you might come back,
Yeah, exactly. Sneak back in there.
So Mark, you get the Humanitarian of the Year award named in honor of Dan Snyder. Getting that award this year, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's obviously pretty special and honoring. I mean, I think it's pretty cool to bring it back to Owen Sound. After it being named after Dan. All the great stuff he did back when he was the captain of the Platers. So for it to go full circle and come back to Owen Sound, I think is pretty cool. And then, I mean, obviously, awards aren't really, doing what doing this stuff is all about, but I mean, it's pretty cool and pretty humbling to be recognized on a stage like this for sure.
Give us the background on Wooley's Warriors. What's it all about? Why'd you start it?
Yeah, I mean, basically it hits so close to home for me, and it's so important to me because I'm diabetic myself. But it all started my rookie season when I was just watching Garrett McFadden do what he does with his mental health movement, and kind of soaking that all in. And a couple of years later, my media girl Steph Karate reached out and just kind of asked if I was still interested in doing something like that, as we had talked briefly before. And I mean, I said, yeah, 100%, but where do we get started? And I mean, next thing you know, we were launching, and then all of a sudden we're raising money to send kids to Diabetes Canada D camps and having kids come to games. And, I'm chatting with them after about, how they live their day to day, how I live my day to day. So, I mean, even with that, I mean, we go back to what we said about the relationships, like some of the diabetic kids that I've met, I mean, at road games up in Kingston and Ottawa, and that stuff is going to stick with me for the rest of my life too. So definitely pretty special that I got to do this in Owen Sound with Wooley's Warriors and everything.
How happy are some of the families you meet afterwards, like you said, maybe in Kingston or Ottawa, or whether it's just in Owen Sound? How happy are those families for the work that you and Wooley's Warriors are doing?
Yeah, I think that it goes a long way. I mean, especially because I mean, majority of my outreach is towards kids. And I know when I was at that age, I was really, really scared on, how that would impact my future in sports. And, I was just kind of getting into that competitive level of hockey. And I wanted to pursue it. And I had no idea if that was still an option when I got diagnosed. So I think just, being that support system for them at that young age, or whatever age it may be, but just knowing, that I try to use my story as proof that, it's not the end all be all. Like, you take care of it. You go to your appointments, whatever, you do what you need to do to make sure you're healthy. And at the end of the day, you're just like any other kid. So, you don't let your diabetes define you, I think is one of the biggest things that I try to preach.
What is your day-to-day like as a diabetic and a high performance athlete?
Yeah, and honestly, it's not that much different than any of my teammates. Believe it or not, that's how easy it is with all the technology and everything that is out nowadays. But I mean, as long as I'm monitoring and making sure I'm eating regularly and kind of knowing what's going into my body, and obviously the preparation and the planning needs to be a little bit more detailed, I guess. Just to make sure I'm not going low like right before a game, or making sure I'm getting food right after a game, so I'm not having that delayed low before I'm going to bed or whatever. Just little stuff like that. But I mean, other than that, like, it's if you were to just kind of like watch me, like have an ISO cam on me, I guess you could say, in a day to day, like, you wouldn't really be able to pick out too many different things than I do for my teammates. It's pretty subtle, and it's just kind of second nature to me now. So you wouldn't even really be able to notice it.
In one of the coolest moments of the season, I think, the Owen Sound Attack make a third jersey, the Wooley's Warriors jersey. Your team wins in overtime wearing those jerseys. What was the conversation like when the team came to you and said, we want to have this idea of wanting to create a Wooley's Warriors jersey?
I was honestly in disbelief when they first came to me. I mean, I thought of it and I was like, looking around, seeing all my teammates with my name on their jersey, like, that's no, like, we're not doing that. But I mean, if you look at what it did, and how great of a night it was, I mean, so thankful for the ownership group and the management there, and everybody who helped make that night possible. I mean, that night has to probably be the highlight of my career. I mean, just hit so close to home to me, and the support from the organization and the fans is just, it's amazing. And that's why Owen Sound is, it's a second home for me now.
I got to be honest, I can understand how weird that feels, Mark, with your teammates having your name on their jersey. Because look at this guy I'm working with right now. Like, what the hell is that? It's weird,
yeah.
right?
yeah, for sure. It definitely took a couple looks getting used to in warm-ups, but it was definitely worth it for sure.
I know they auctioned those jerseys off, but did you get to keep yours at least?
Yeah, we ordered a couple extras. I got some for my grandparents, and my parents, I think, have one or two or three. I don't know. We got a couple extras for sure, and then the designer of them got one. So yeah, there was a whole bunch of extras.
You mentioned that you're always going to call Owen Sound a second home, and that's certainly a feeling that a lot of players have when they leave this league and move on to other things. There's just that bond you develop with the town where you played. But what about next steps for you? What are you looking forward to next?
Yeah, I think it's still kind of up in the air a little bit. I mean, obviously, I want to play pro, but we'll kind of wait and see for a contract. As of right now, I'm probably going to be heading out to U Sports and playing in the AUS division. I don't know what school yet. That'll probably come in the next couple weeks or month or so. I think I got some visits coming up, but yeah, realistically, probably the U Sport route right now. But I mean, that's just another journey for me. At the end of the day, I want to play pro hockey someday. So just whatever path it takes to get there, we'll see.
If we don't want to waste too much of your time, but I'm just curious if you can wrap this up for us. And I heard a fun story from Fred Wallace where your trade, obviously, to Owen Sound from Guelph in your second year, I think it was second year in Guelph, that trade almost didn't happen because your parents were away. Can you tell us that whole story and what it was like for you to go through that process?
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, I'm in grade 12. 2 days prior, I was told, you're not going anywhere. We want you here, blah, blah, blah. But then all of a sudden, Nick Suzuki, Sean Dursey get offered up to you, and you're trying to go for it. It's pretty hard to turn down, right? So, yeah, my agent calls me. I'm on the way home from school to get ready to go play a hometown game in London, and he goes, how would you feel about going to Owen Sound? I was like, to be honest, like, I don't know. I have to think about it. Like, that's a lot to just get up and move. And then my roommate who lived with me last year, Barrett Kerwin, he was in the car with me at the same time. He got a call from his agent at the exact same time. We just looked at each other and we're like, oh, here we go. And then, so the next like 12 hours was just crazy. I mean, I got back to my billet house, and my parents were on vacation in Cuba. So I sent them a text, and I think they were on like a horseback ride or something like that. And so, I mean, I don't think I got to talk to them until I think maybe I called my dad for like 20 minutes, like 4 hours later or something like that. And so I was basically only in contact with my older brother and then my girlfriend at the time, and just basically trying to figure out, like, you know, do I do this or no? Like, and then I think they got home from their vacation after the trade had went down, and I was playing like my second game in Owen Sound on a road trip in Erie. So they came straight from Pearson Airport right to the Erie Insurance Arena and came and saw me after I got traded there. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. But I mean, it all happened for a reason, and Owen Sound was the best thing that ever happened to me. So yeah.
I just wanted to have one quick one too before we let you go, because I remember watching you when you came into this league with Guelph, and the way you would lay a body check. And then when the deal comes to go to Owen Sound, I'm like, oh my God, like nobody's going to want to play, because that arena, I would think, or that rink is built for a guy like you. So you want to play pro, just, you know, I'm sure I would love to think that there's always room for a guy that hits like you in the pro hockey game. But where do you develop that, Mark? Is it something that you work on as a younger hockey player?
I guess maybe a little bit. I mean, maybe I mean, I'm not a farmer or anything like that, but like those are the kids that I grew up playing with, right? Like I played for Elgin. We were always like the out of city kids. So, you know, I guess we're considered the rednecks or whatever, but we always played that like harder type hockey growing up rather than the skilled stuff. I mean, my minor hockey team was never very good, so maybe that's why we always had to play like the hitting game. But I mean, you guys being from Kitchener, I played with Mutter growing up my whole career, and we were best pals. And I mean, you know, he knows how to throw a body check too. So I don't know, yeah, but definitely going to the Bayshore. That was one of the convincing factors to get me to go there. And I mean, I made that my rink. I don't think too many guys did like going into the corner with me there. So definitely fun rink to play the last couple of years of my career in, for sure.
Navrin Mutter and Mark Wooley on the same team. I have the Elgin flu every game, 1,000%. No, thank you. No dice.
Yeah.
Can you do us a quick favor before we let you go, Mark, and just solve an argument that Mike and I have? That rink in Owen Sound is smaller than every other rink, right? Like the ice, it's smaller.
Yeah, it's got. I mean, even if it's not like technically, it definitely feels like it is for sure. Like there's no way there's more space there, just as much space there as in other rinks. No way.
Yeah, that's because you and Andrew Parrott policed the blue line for half the year this year. And then they'd roll out Chibrikov, who's 8 feet tall. No wonder it felt small.
Yeah, we had a good blue line there for sure.
Well, Mark, we really appreciate you taking the time. I always like players that play hard on the ice, but are the nice guys off the ice. So we really appreciate all your time over the years. Congratulations on a great career, and we're looking forward to see what Wooley's Warriors continues to do.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for having me out today. This is awesome.
Yeah, and congrats on that award too. Well deserved. Thanks for doing this.
Mark Wooley, what a great guy. I'm going to miss watching him play in this league. And I mean it. He was like, I love players like that who are so mean off the ice. And then when you go to interview him, you kind of expect, you know, kind of a brash person. Mark Wooley is one of the nicest players I've ever interviewed in this league. It's bizarre, but man, what a player. I hope he does make it to the pro rank someday for sure.
We're pretty lucky in this league. We run into a lot of good young men, and they're all here just trying to develop some skills and make it to the next level, as so many others involved in the league are. So I agree. Real treat to listen to and have a conversation with. And I do have that sneaking suspicion that U Sports is not going to be the end of the hockey career for Mark Wooley, a guy that plays the game the way he does and hits the way he hits. I think there's room for him in pro hockey somewhere.
Yeah, and if he's going out to the AUS, as he said, everyone out in that division just went, oh, really? Like, stay in Ontario. You know, like, you hit so hard. But he's got such a pro game. I can't believe he hasn't got a better look or a bigger look. But I'm going to miss him. And, congrats to all the overagers as their season, winds down. Mike Petizian in tears after game 5 in Windsor, thinking about his career trajectory or career development, rather, where he came from as a 16-year-old rookie to where he left. It's pretty bananas. And there's a lot of players that are going through that.
Yeah, I'll remind you, and we've talked about it before on this podcast, of the former coach in this league that said if Mike Petizian was 3 inches taller, he would have been a first rounder. So, and it's really one of the almost criminal aspects of this game. I mean, I get it, but the kid, and you saw it in his final year, is just all heart. And Mike McKenzie, following the Rangers' ouster by the Windsor Spitfire, said Mike Petizian is the heart and soul of the hockey club. He wore an A on his jersey as opposed to a C, but he was every bit a leader and every bit one of those glue guys on a team. So we should remind folks that the OHL Stories podcast, just because Poper and I cover the Kitchener Rangers for the season, doesn't mean that, just because the Ranger season is done, this podcast is done. We're going to carry you right through the OHL championship and then send you off to the Memorial Cup to have some fun there. But we're going to continue with these episodes until an OHL champion is crowned. And as you said, Poper, to all of the overagers, hope you enjoyed your time in the league, and we'll wish you nothing but the best on every team moving forward from here. The teams that we saw in this Western Conference, Chris, specifically the Windsor Spitfires in the last round, they are going to be a handful for Ted Dent and the Flint Firebirds for sure. It seemed to me, and we talked about it on our broadcasts of Kitchener Rangers hockey, it seemed to me that the Rangers had real opportunity on the opening weekend to actually win both in Windsor. They didn't, but and Windsor won the first game by a goal. After the Rangers won the second game, it looked to me like Windsor woke up or something, because the last 3 games, Windsor seemed to almost kind of have their way with the Rangers.
Yeah, they were a powerhouse. And I think, truthfully, the Rangers ran out of gas.
Yeah.
They ran out of bodies. They ran out of gas. And it was such an emotional first round against London. I think it was tough for them to kind of match that against Windsor. And when you can't, and as each round goes on, as we've talked about on the ride home, as each round goes on, it gets tougher. The teams get better. You have to elevate your game. And I just think there was nowhere else for the Rangers to elevate to, unfortunately. And just a quick note on Petizian, you mentioned wearing an A. I sent a tweet out last night that I want to have a 10-course meal with Daryl Sutter, because I could watch his press conferences for hours. I think he is absolutely hysterical. Dry humor is all get out, but he mentioned someone asked him about Johnny Gaudreau wearing an A, and he's typical Daryl, whatever, right? He just said letters are decorations. That's all they are. It's what you do in the room and on the ice that really matters. He was just next in line.
Interesting.
Well, if that was the case, Mike Petizian should have 7 C's on his jersey, because how can you knock the way that guy played? But I just thought of it. It was a great way to put it for a guy who's been around this league a long time and coached in more game 7s than anyone in history. Now 8-3 in game 7s. And for a guy to call letters decoration, I think you know what it means to coaches about a letter. It's like, yeah, sure, we need them out there, but go for it.
Sorry, tell me that record for Daryl Sutter again in game 7s.
8-3.
And he was unemployed when Calgary went back out and got him?
Yeah, well, yeah, because you went back to the farm.
Hey, Toronto. Hey, Toronto.
8-3. You know what else I'm going to miss about the Kitchener Rangers season being done, Mike?
What's
And
that?
the second round being done? Yes. Shout out Mike Moose Reeves. He's always makes me laugh. But no, I'm going to miss our good friend Joe at Antonino's Pizza in Windsor. I wasn't even hungry after game 5, but I thought, it's my last time down here for a while. I'm getting Antonino's. You're going to have to fight me from it. And a quick shout out to our colleague, Steve Bell, who foot the bill. Him and Joe at Antonino's looked after us.
Thanks, Beller, for the pizza. Loved it on the way home.
And a quick shout out to the one gentleman who was working at Antonino's. He was the only guy in there. And I said, busy night. And he grabbed receipts. And I'm not kidding. There was a stack about 5 inches big. And he goes, I've been working alone all night. This is just from tonight. I thought to myself, holy jumping, you poor individual. But he's pumping in pizzas away you go. And I said, that is crazy busy. He looks at me like I have 10 heads. He goes, well, yeah, we have the best pizza in Windsor. And I said, no, you don't. You have the best pizza in the province. You are doing God's work back there, my man. Let me do your thing. I will go sit out in my car until my pizza is ready. So a quick shout out to Joe at Antonino's. What a guy, what a place, and oh, what a pie.
I love it. It's my favorite. I do not disagree, although I haven't tried the pizza in every city in the province. The first time I tried it, even though it had been hyped up, it lived up to the hype and then some. We even got a couple of Rangers fans onto it because they made the trip down for the Rangers last game in Windsor on a Saturday night. So they had some pie while they were there. Getting some tweets about that. Trust us, please. If you're in Windsor, just check out Antonino's Pizza. Judge for yourself. I don't think you'll be disappointed. You may remember and want to give a shout out to, and rightly so, Joe from Antonino's. And again, our buddy Beller for hooking it up so we didn't have to pay for our last pie on the way out of town. But I'm not sure we left any money either earlier in the day, Chris, with our pregame routine now. You'll do a coffee review every once in a while when we go to a visiting city. And so we just try to find a local independent coffee shop as opposed to a chain. So back during the regular season, we're in Windsor, find this place called Gennaro's. We went in, loved the coffee. It was a really nice customer service experience. Great young lady behind the counter walked us through, how good the espresso was and the different menu items. We found this coffee called a Turbo. We really liked it. So we liked it so much, we went back. And then we met Enzo Palumbo, the son of the owner, Gennaro Palumbo. And Enzo is a certified beauty. That's all I can say. All I know for sure is that by the time we finished visiting Gennaro's, which we did 3 times in the playoffs, and I think 5 times overall through the season, we were not just getting coffee on our way out the door, or when we got in the door. There were extras involved because Enzo became our best friend, and not only with the coffee when we left on Saturday, but the cannoli and the tiramisu in a takeout container. Are you kidding me, Windsor? Like, when can we come back?
Listen, this is OHL Stories. We tell stories on this podcast.
You can tell the whole story. I didn't want to take the thunder from you.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I was just going to tell them the extras. We walk in and,
I'm okay. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want everybody to expect this treatment that
they're not.
we meant. Okay.
They're not. It's people go there because they want to support a good person in Enzo Palumbo. But the first time we walked in, it was a great experience because the coffee was awesome. I gave a great review. Second time we go in, Enzo's there and we meet him. And then he's like, he kind of looks at us weird because we were wearing suits. And then he finds out we're doing a broadcast and he's like, oh, you guys want to do a shot of Crown Royal? What? And but by the time we can even answer, like, we kind of looked at each other like, okay. He already had the shots poured. He was having 3 or we were all having one. Like, that's the way we were with Enzo. So then we got talking, had a great chat and whatever. And he asked you if he knew Herbie from Kitchener.
Herbie from Kitchener. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And then for game 5, we go back, obviously, and we go walking in and Enzo's in. I said to you as we were walking up to the building, I said, I wonder if Enzo will be in here this time. And sure as heck he was. And as soon as we walk in, someone yells, there they are. And he's got by the time the doors closed, he's got the bottle of Crown. He's dumping out shots again. What, Enzo, we got to go to work here, buddy.
Yeah, we had 2 shots before the game on Saturday.
Yeah. And but we had the gelato. The banana gelato was so crazy. Delicious. And then I said I had a cannoli the last time. Leave the gun, take the cannoli. And I said, and I saw some other stuff. Enzo, what are these things? Us 2 with our sweet tooth. He's like, oh, those are tiramisu. I'll hook you up. Yeah, you're leaving with a couple of these. He hands us both a tiramisu, 2 cannolis, the coffee, plus the added bonus from Enzo. And I'm standing by the register to pay. And I felt like I insulted him.
You did. Like, I think you did.
Seriously, he's like, get out of here. You're not paying. And I'm like, and then his buddy comes from the back and goes, you guys are the guy that talked about it on YouTube. What? So we got some listeners and viewers down in Gennaro's. What a welcoming place to walk into, and a place that I'm happy to give my business. I will happily pay every time and tip huge every time I go in there, just because they are such great people. And I don't think anything topped in our time there, even with the cannolis, the tiramisu, the coffee, the shots, nothing topped his story as to how he got a picture with Al Pacino on his wall.
Al Pacino stole Enzo's espresso machine. That's the story. Like, Enzo even said, I'm going to go to LA and I'm going to get my espresso machine back from Al Pacino. You make that make sense, but it happened. Al Pacino took Enzo Palumbo's espresso machine. That happened. That's a true story on OHL Stories.
Gennaro Palumbo is Enzo's father, the namesake for the building. Please, if you are in Windsor, we beg you, go to Antonino's and see Joe, and definitely go to Gennaro's and check out Enzo. Tell them Farwell and Pope sent you, and just enjoy what is Enzo Palumbo, because in the 2 minutes after the drive, after we got in the car, I don't think either of us said anything other than, what just happened? Like, what was that? It was sensory overload in there, but I can't wait to go back.
It was a whirlwind, to be sure. You can see us with Enzo. The picture has been posted to our Twitter accounts at Farwell_WR. No, at Farwell_OHL. Take your pick, doesn't matter. And at _Chris Pope. The two Twitter accounts, that's a whole other conversation for a whole other day. We'll have it sometime. But for now, just check out Enzo Palumbo at _Chris Pope, at Farwell_OHL.
Only Farwell and I know how much joy it just brought me that he name dropped both of his Twitter accounts. So
you can follow them both if you want. I don't have any problem with that. Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of that cup of coffee, it was never just a cup of coffee when you got in a fight with Tony Iob, because that guy knew how to handle himself. Kingston, yep.
Best chirp I've ever heard to this day in an arena. The question is this: does Tony agree or not? That's all. I'm done.
We find out. Former Kingston Frontenac, former two-time OHL champion with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and then went on to a long pro career, 18 years, mostly overseas. But for Waterloo Crime Stoppers, it is Tony Iob. Remember, farwell4hire.com.
So many things, I think, to go over with our guest this week, but I want to start, Tony, just given the style of hockey that you played in an era where that style was more common. Does the game today disappoint you in any way?
Oh, I think it disappoints a lot of us that played in that era. Like we watch it, and Nylander, you look at that guy, he goes into the corner and he reaches for his stick, and I could always remember going back to, especially Larry Maverty, what I go over my head what he would say, like he obviously can't repeat what he'd say to me, but get in there, play hard, and it's a lot of guys are like that now, right? You don't have that extra oomph to get into the corners, or I guess the fearness of getting hurt. I guess they play. We didn't have that fear of getting hurt.
Where did that style of play that you had come from? Like, were you into the fisticuffs off the ice too?
Yes, a little bit, but I mean, it was more, as once I made OHL and I got back home, and we ended up going out and stuff with friends and that, it was more, a lot of guys would challenge it, right? Like it would be, oh, you're fighting in hockey, let's fight the off ice, so I don't think, I didn't fight a lot when I was young, as I got older, as my career went on, I think it was, it was more a protection thing than anything off ice, but on ice, it was, I don't know, it felt like it was part of your role, right? So, like if you can fight, and a lot of guys back in my era could fight as well. If they couldn't, they sure tried, right?
You mentioned one of the names already that we can't talk to you without talking about, and that was Larry Maverty. The other, of course, Ted Nolan. I mean, if we're going to have a Hall of Fame of Ontario Hockey League coaches, those guys are in there for sure. Can you take us through the differences, the similarities, what it was like playing for those two guys?
When I first drafted, so I remember, they had that 48-hour rule, and my dad, it was coming up to the 48 hours, and then this is my first kind of experience with Maverty, and he was up in the press box, and we knew that there was only 2 or 3 spots for guys to make, and So I walk up and, say, hey, Mr. Maverty, where do I stand if I'm not going to, I'm going to go back to, Pembroke and play. And he just kind of looked at me with that, his angry look, but it's just his, his resting face, and just said, Yob, you made the team. And I'm like, with a couple of swear words in there. So I climb down the ladder and I get down to my dad and I go, I made the team, let's go. He goes, did he sign the card? I'm like, oh my God. So I got to walk back up to the stairs and I said, can you sign me the card? So he signed it away, So that was my first experience with Mav. And, it was, I loved every moment with him. He was that type of guy that, he taught us a lot of how to protect yourself, and that's going back to, 30 years, how to protect yourself on the ice when you're getting hit. And we played a little different too. You played to hurt, it's hard to say, but you did, it was just the kind of the way the game was. Getting to Ted was a great motivator. I was very fortunate to be traded up to Sioux, and I had a ball up there. We as soon as I landed, Sherry Basson picked me up. And sorry, I didn't land. I played in Niagara Falls, and Sherry Basson picked me up, and we, he chatted all the way there, and I got on a plane the next day and ended up in the Sioux. And I think my first game in the Sioux, I scored a hat trick. So it was great up there. And you got to mention Danny Flynn too, because he was a huge part of that coaching, with Teddy.
Did you get a word in with Bass on the way up, or did he just talk the entire time?
No, he talked all the way up, and to be honest with you, and I when we're sitting in the car and he was telling me how they traded for me and he loved my style and we're gonna go far and this and that, and I'm like, I didn't want to get traded to the Sioux because Larry Maverty was trying to get me to go to Belleville, and Ottawa was trying to trade me. Killer was trying to trade for me, and I was totally surprised. I was like caught off guard when I went into Kingston the next morning after the trade deadline, and I was traded to the Sioux. And the funny thing is, in Kingston we had a red phone, and it was the Sioux hotline. So we always joked the guys as the years went on about getting traded to the Sioux. Now all of a sudden I'm that guy getting traded, but I wouldn't change a thing. We're getting traded up there.
The Sioux hotline, I like that.
Yeah.
What was it like? What goes through your mind though when you're a young man? I think about this even in the modern day, obviously, but you're going from Kingston, which isn't too far from home for you, to the northernmost outpost in the Ontario Hockey League.
Yeah, I don't cry often. I remember crying, like getting in the car, and I was just sitting there crying. I'm like, I can't believe I got traded. Do I go? Do I stay? And then, I called my parents, and my dad says, "Oh, I'll go up and, try it." But I remembered years before being drafted that there was a OHL scout from the Sioux that was in talking to my parents, and my parents said, no, it's too far for him to go. We want them to stay close. At that time, being very lucky that I was drafted by Kingston. My parents were there every weekend watching me and supporting me there, and it didn't make any difference because my parents still ended up coming up to the Sioux. In the playoffs, they saw every playoff game up there, and it was hard, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. I ended up going up there and living and staying up there in my summer after my first year pro. So it's a great town, great hockey town, great people. They treated you, like gold up there.
You mentioned Belleville. Playing the way you played, what do you think the reception would have been from Bulls fans getting Tony Iob from Kingston?
Yeah, it would have been, I never even thought about it. I only, it was more just going in and playing with Mav. As a young kid, you never really think about it. But as you get older, you're like, oh my God, we had brawls, we had fights, we had that one year we went into the playoffs, we played all the games went in the overtime and the long overtime. I think it's still maybe one of the OHL records that are up there. And maybe I wouldn't have had to fight McCarty again, but he it was just trying to stay home, stay close to home. You never, and it's different now. Like, I think if you end up in the Sioux and you have the means of social media like we do have now, right? Like you don't feel like you're away. Like right now, where you guys are and I are, it's so much easier now, right? Going to my first years away, and then even when I was playing pro, like people don't even know I was still playing. I remember running into some guys when I was at the World Championships, and they go, "Oh, we didn't even know you're still playing." No, how would you? It's different, right?
You mentioned McCarty. Who's the toughest player you played against?
Darren. He was a rough, tough guy, right? But there's the Stevenson and Kitchener too. There's a ton of guys. Every team had a guy or two guys. Even three guys. We were lucky in Kingston that we had a Mark Majors. We had Justin Morrison, Jamie Allen. We had a ton of guys on our team that Wayne Doucette. With that. Could all drop the gloves, but McCarty was tough. He wrote a book about it and put me in his book, which was pretty neat. I fought him as a rookie and beat him up pretty bad, and then he got me. I had no clue that he was taking boxing lessons, and then he caught me and got my shirt over my head, and I ended up going home for Christmas with a cut over my eye. So definitely he was a tough guy.
You had 142 PIMs in your second season in Kingston, and that was only the fourth highest on the team. So yeah, you had a pretty tough team. I think that's crazy. The one video I wanted to ask you, but you talk about McCarty being tough. You also, I want to say got to, but had to maybe fight Eric Lindros. How strong was he in that fight?
He's a big guy, right? Like he's 6'4", like he was a man child back then, right? And I was still, I was 210, 215, right? So, I didn't back down from fighting anybody, and at the beginning of the fight, I got a good couple licks on him.
Yep.
And then he honestly reached up and tried to grab me, and he poked me in the eye. My eye, so then I tried to hold on from him, pull him down like you would a normal guy, but being so big and strong, he just kind of held on me, hit me a couple of times on the top of the head. But then you watch the video, you hear the OHL general guys, the commentators saying, "Oh, he killed Iob," and then what's nice is everybody sees him skating off with a bloody his eye bleeding, right? So he was a tough guy. Like that was a tough series. That was we always go back and talk about it, and how draining it was. And then when we got to the Memorial Cup, I think we were just exhausted, right? Getting through the playoffs and then playing those guys, and it was Eric Lindros and the OHL Generals. It was, we saw signs as soon as we went in the OHL, we saw signs that was said, "Oh, the road to the Memorial Cup," and it kind of like, okay, guys, let's take them down, so.
Okay, there's definitely some championship talk to come, but a bit of an aside here. When we were talking about Kingston, you had a teammate there, and it just so happens that we're talking to that teammate next. And when I told him that we were talking to you before we talked to him, it's Joel Washkarak says, "Don't believe a word that jackass says." So you get the first shot here, Tony. What do you want to say to Washer?
Washer, yeah, he's a good. I remember him as a rookie, and we had a small little get together of the guys, and I ended up we drove over to his house, and he was in bed, and we pulled him out, and it was just a kind of a rookie party, but nothing, like there was some bad stuff going on other teams but nothing bad that happened, and we just pulled him out of his bed, and he was a tough kid too, right? Like he could fight, he could put the puck in the net. So yeah, no, I like Washer. We're still in contact a lot, and as he always says, yeah, that jackass, so. I would have loved to play as him being a referee. I would have enjoyed it, I think.
For sure.
I want to ask about another name you played with. We had him on this podcast, and you get last say because we've already had him. Kelly Corpse was a rookie in your second year in Kingston. What was Corpsey like?
He came in as a underage, and that year I ended up getting traded, and I tried to take him under my wing. Like he ended up. I had friends that lived near the rink, and we'd always end up there after school, eating crap dinner. And then I always remember him. He's just this hungry kid all the time, and I'd just give money to my friends, and he'd end up eating the crap dinner or whatever they had there. And now Kelly was a skilled player. He was one of the better guys in Kingston that came through skill wise, and he's played those games. He's got his number up in the rafters for a reason, and he was a good kid. I really enjoyed him, and it was nice running into him. The tribute to Maverty, and he's thanked me for doing what I did, and it meant a lot. And I came home and told people, I said, that. It means a lot that something that happened 30 years ago or 34 years ago, and it sticks with you. So,
speaking of things that stick with you, I've really been interested in asking you this question because you were on the receiving end of it. So bear with me, and I touched on this when we were setting this up to have this conversation on the podcast. So I'm a kid growing up in Kitchener. I go to Rangers games all the time. There's a game between the Rangers and the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. And there are a couple of leather lungs in my section. I'm laid back. I'm just watching the game. But there were a couple of guys that were pretty loud. I, to this day, have always said they're the best chirps I've heard because I didn't think they were insulting in any way, really, but you were on the receiving end. So I don't know if you remember or you remember some ones from other ones, but these two guys, one was yelling out Tony 10B, and then bingo. Like it would just be 10B, bingo. And then the other guy jumped on with, is that your last name or your postal code? I've never, that's 35 years ago, Tony. I've never forgotten that. I don't know if you remember, if that's insulting now, if it wasn't. Anyway, but I've always thought they were pretty good chirps. Did you get many of that?
Those are pretty good. Like, I mean, the 10B bingo, that's a good one. I haven't heard that one. And I don't remember them, saying that, as a kid, I think one of my last summer hockey tournaments, and we were playing American team, and my mom was sitting up in the stands, and there was a family beside him, and the lady says, "Look at this kid. He doesn't even have a last name. He just put 108 to 11 on his jersey." It's my mom looked around. It's Iob. It's IOB. So
that's pretty good.
It's a different. I think it's still different. Like you can't chirp, as you could back then. You can't go at guys, right? So too many rules these days.
It's true. It's true.
You were obviously a fighter. We've alluded to that, but were you a chirper too, or you just go about your business?
Nah, I think as I got older, it became more a little bit. I always when I got late in my career, I think I talked a little bit more on the bench as I, got even overseas, and I became more vocal and stuff. And, it was more just try to get my guys, pumped up for the game or keep them in the game or, keep us going. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've had some chirps out there, probably a lot that I can't say on here, but, it's, there's always some guys, right? Like I remember playing, it wasn't even a chirp. In the Olympics, I played against Jaeger, and it was the day before he played Finland, and I can't remember who hit him, but he hit him. He had those old Jofa helmet on, and he got cut. So we're lining up, and he's a big burly man. I look over at him and go, "How's the pumpkin?" He goes, "Pumpkin," and skates away.
Did you relish the role, Tony? Because we've heard from some other guys that, after the playing days are done, you look back and say, it was tough. Some nights you didn't want to do the job that you were expected to do on the ice for that team, et cetera. Did you relish the role?
I don't even relish. I didn't dislike it, you know, like it was, you know, there were some big guys out there too that, you know, that you never got around to fighting. Even like in my pro years, you know, like Link Gates was supposed to play against him one night, and I'm like, oh my God, like here's a guy I don't want to, you know, anywhere near. And thank God he didn't play that game. But you know, it was like again, it was kind of your role of a hockey player. If you look at like our Kingston team or even our Sioux team, like how many guys that could fight or take care of themselves or were not afraid to go into the corners, like it outnumbers what you have now on teams. You know, like it was, I remember my first fight and I came back to the bench in Kingston and Maverty says, you know, for shit's sakes, yeah, why did it take you so long? You know, but you know, being left-handed helped me out quite a bit too, right? So you know, I caught a lot of guys off, and I took a lot of punches too, right? So it's you know, I always tried to get the first two in at least.
Before making it to the OHL, what did it mean to you at the time to play for the Junior B Timberwolves?
In Renfrew?
Yeah.
So I was in Pembroke, and Jim Ferrelli was the coach at the time. And the first couple games, I played a regular shift, and all of a sudden, I sat on the bench. And I was sitting there. It's 13 games, and I'll tell you the story. So I'm on the bench, and he's you can see him looking down at me. My feet are killing me now. Like I haven't played the whole game. So I reached down and I unloosened my skates up. And all of a sudden now we're, you know, 13 games have gone by and it's like late in the game. All of a sudden, Iob, get out there. So I'm out there and I'm skating down my skates are loose, and I ended up going down and getting an assist on the play. I came back to the bench, just sat down, pretending like everything was normal, right? So anyways, come Christmas time, I wasn't playing a lot. I had the opportunity to go back and play Renfrew Junior B, and you know, being home and it's one of those rinks that they don't have them anymore. It was an old barn. It was wood. The stands were on top of you. We'd fill it like 1,100. I bet you some nights even probably 1,500 people in this rink, and it was just jammed. Like you just see heads. And you know, we ended up winning Eastern Ontario that year, and I got a good chunk of ice time, and it was a lot of fun. It was that's, you know, going back, I was 16 at the time, an underage. So you go back that many years, and it's you know, it's still all the memories, right? Like even my junior A days, I remember a lot of them.
Man, it sounds like success was following you, Tony, because when you got up to the Sioux, it's back-to-back OHL championships and Memorial Cup appearances. Take them maybe one at a time. And obviously the first one didn't turn out the way you wanted to. You guys went through the playoffs that year like a buzzsaw, right? I think it went sweep by sweep and then the final in 6, but you didn't win a single game in the round robin at the Memorial Cup in Quebec.
Yeah, we ran up against Felix Pop in our second game. Our first game, you know, we were probably sleepy, and then realized we were in a game, and we ended up losing. I think we outshot them 65-13, and we lost 2-1. You know, and that was the game that, you know, if we kind of won, we kind of would have. I think we would have got into the, you know, that at least the semis, anyways. And then coming up against Spokane, like that was they had an unreal team that year, right? So. You know, and then the next year it was a battle again, right? Against North Bay. We end up going to Memorial Cup. That one stings a little bit more, you know, being tied 3-3, you know, actually beat Kamloops, I think 5-2 or 5-3 in the relegation round. And then, you know, going up against them and being 3-3, and they score with, you know, 13 seconds left or 12.6 seconds left in the game to take that away from us, you know, especially me being an overage. You know, that was a stinger to end my career.
Just to follow up there, sorry, Poper, but
Yep.
Being the defending OHL champ and going through the season to repeat, I mean, that's a remarkable accomplishment. Was it on your minds? Did you think about it? Did you talk about it? We want to go back and do it different, that sort of thing? Because you got to have a target on your back, obviously, the whole next year as defending champs.
I ended up coming back late in the year because I was in Rochester, and I think it was late in October, and I didn't know if they had a spot for me, and I didn't know what was going on. And then I ended up, you know, talking to Teddy Nolan. He just says, you know, get your ass up here, was his last words. And I got in my car and drove up, and then they had to deal somebody, I think Mike DeKoff away for me to come in as an overage, and you know, it just kind of rolled. It seemed like we rolled off from the year before, and we just kind of kept winning, and we had that you know, we put ourselves in that position, you know, like I guess we demanded ourselves to win, you know, like we kept an even keel. We had great defense, we had great goaltending, like we had a good you know, 3-4 lines, you know, you see, look at some of our Ralph in Chernobyl, you had Jarrett Reed, you know, like we had a bunch of young kids too that were playing those years, and then they just helped us out so much.
That first OHL championship run, you had a defenseman named Adam Foote. How good was he?
He was spectacular. If you watch his son now in Tampa, it reminds me of Adam, just some of his moves and stuff. He was spectacular back there, you know, like he would, he still, I remember I got up there and it was his third year, and he still had the same CCM skates he started with. And I remember the trainer trying to sew them back together so he could wear them, you know, and, you know, he was great. We had Bob Bugner back there as well. Brad Tiley, you know, like he was my roommate, but, you know, Tiles was a great stay-home defenseman that can move the puck up as well, you know, like, you know, you talked about three defense, Sean Iob, you know, guys after guys, right? I don't think there was a guy on the team that didn't contribute, you know, if they were on the ice. You know, you was not a guy that went on the ice, you went, oh my God, this guy's going on the ice.
Speaking of teammates, to the opposition and some of the names, I mean, I know, and you mentioned it's disappointing, obviously, after you go 7 games versus North Bay in the final to earn that trip to the Memorial Cup, you get to the final game. I know it stings to lose, but looking back, you look at Scott Niedermayer, Daryl Sador, Darcy Tucker. I mean, it wasn't a bad team you lost to in that 92 championship.
No, but I think us going into that last game, I think we kind of were a little bit, because we had, you know, our 3 wins going in, and we sat out. I think going back, I wish we would have had to play that other game just to keep us going. You know, we sat out, watched them guys play, and then you know, they were thinking maybe they were tired, and, you know, they got up on us 3 quick. And it was just one of those games. And, you know, then we started going, and again, you know, I think Chris Simon scored 3 goals that game, and he was on fire. You know, there's another tough guy that we had on our team, you know, so, you know, and he could score. You know, it was they definitely had a great team. You know, my buddy, I have a friend, Todd Stewart in Renfrew, and he remembers every stat, everything that, you know, he knew everybody. By the time I got home, he already knew who was on that team, and, you know, he even still talks about them, you know, like, and, you know, and I think all of us go through our heads how Niedermayer on a 4-on-1 steps up on the play to receive a pass that was going back, you know, a back pass, and pass it up to a guy jumping off the bench, because the guy realized that they were shorthanded, you know, and he goes in and scores this goal. And if you look at the goal that goes in, it looks like he's almost on the goal line when he shoots it. You know, it comes back, hits the post, and goes in. You know, so
sometimes you just got to tip your hat to a good shot, just like Goudreau last night.
I wasn't tipping anything that day. You know, I remember I still have that feeling of sitting on the bench and just watching this guy go down, and you just saying, oh, Kevin's got him, you know, Hodson's got him, he's got him, and all of a sudden went around him, okay, he's gonna miss it, and then just kind of goes in and just trickles by the goal line, right? So, and then you look up thinking, oh, we got time, and then you have 0 time. You got nothing to go.
I'm curious about, we talked about all the tough guys that you played with in Kingston and Mavs style, Ted Nolan style, and Sault Ste. Marie. You talk about some of the guys you played with there, like Bugner and Simon. What were some of these practices like? Did they ever get out of hand?
No, we were pretty good. Like my centerman Justin Morrison, I think I fought more with him than anybody. You know, like but come game time, we clicked. We had Jamie Allen and him and I. You know, if you look at our penalty minutes that year, you know, like we played. I love playing with those guys. You know, we all had similar styles. You know, we had 3 guys going at you that were not afraid to go to the net or into the corner. So, you know, I had those guys. In the Sioux, we didn't. I had Colin Miller. You know, very quiet spoken. You know, player, and Jason Denemy, right? So like different style. So I think my game, kind of, went from a muck and grinding game to more, get to the net. These guys are going to find you.
I got to be honest, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the Sioux. Obviously, the 33-0 home record under Terry Crisp, when you guys were there, 2 of the 3 consecutive championships, plus the Memorial Cup that came the year after you left, and a great community, like you've talked about, Tony, for sure. But I've always wondered as a player, that travel has got to be hell. It's got to be hell.
You just get used to it. You get on the bus, everybody had a different way. Like, and it probably prepared me for some of my trips in Europe. Like, I was going sometimes 6-7 hours on a bus, leaving Milan, Italy, and going all the way up into Hungary. And then as we're coming back in from Hungary into Milan, we're hitting rush hour. So we're stuck there for 2-3 hours in traffic. You just want to get home, and you're just looking at these cars not moving, right? So, it's you get by, right? Like, we all had our our sport Walkmans with the cassettes in it, and we played cards, and you make the best of it, right? Lots of movies.
Lots of movies.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore, though, Tony.
I know, we miss it.
Yeah.
Speaking of things we miss in the game,
No
They
movies.
don't have movies.
No, they'll just sit on their phones.
Yeah. It's that was the best part about road trips, right? How many million kilometers I've been on a bus is it's the last with the guys, right? Like, you had nothing else to do, was to talk to somebody beside you, or bug somebody, or chirp them, or
Real quick, you rode the bus a lot, especially during your time overseas, as you just mentioned. But did they still watch Slapshot in your later days? Is that still a go-to on the bus?
Yeah, it was always a movie that came on. Slapshot was always there, right? Like, it was always the Italian guys, especially the Austrian guys, wherever country I was in, like, those guys just loved it, right? They'd always laugh more than we did, because we, how many times have we watched it? At least 100 times, right? So it was always Slapshot. A little bit of young blood. They weren't used to the young blood one, so.
In those Memorial Cups, and maybe even the last one, obviously playing in the final, did Ted make a big speech that you remember before that final game, or did anybody stand up and just talk?
Ted was a great motivator. I couldn't remember, like, I just remember how he motivated us, how he, every pregame, after our warm up, he would come in and talk to us, and he would get us excited, right? Like, he was like I say, he was the best in the business of as a motivator, and he knew the game, right? So he knew how to, and that's I think coaches laugh now, is he knew how to get the best out of every single individual player. Like, it's you have to go to, like here, you have to go to the hockey school or coaching school for them to try to tell you, but these guys already had it, like Ted had it and Danny had it, right? Like, they would, and Danny, I always remember going to the bench when there's a timeout, or he'd be drawing something up crazy on the board, right? Especially, when playing Kitchener or whatever, we'd always have a play, and it end up working, so, or against Oshawa, or whoever we were playing against, and we'd end up scoring goals on it. So
we've had our share of memories on this podcast from the old Windsor Arena, for example. That barn up in Kingston, when you were playing there, holy hell, that was a barn for sure. What arenas do you remember for the worst reasons?
Probably Windsor. Windsor was, that was just an old barn, and I remember getting a 10-minute misconduct, so I got kicked out, and right in between the periods, so I had to wait. So I was like 4 minutes left in the period, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go get a Snickers. I'm starving. I need a chocolate bar. So I'm sitting in my gear, and I walk up, and I'm in the and all of a sudden the game let out, but all the people are getting into the crowd. So I'm sitting in the front of the canteen trying to get this chocolate bar, and I'm like, everybody's looking at me, and I go back into the room, and I remember Aberty looking at me, goes, "Where'd you go?" I was hungry. I needed to get a chocolate bar. So he kind of just shook his head at me, but I just remember, trying to get myself out of these people to get back into the locker room. Detroit, when we went in to play CompuWare, I guess, we
Yep.
ended up playing in the Red Wings, and they would give free tickets out or sell them for $1, and they would sell out, right? 13, 14, 15,000 people. So that was pretty exciting for us to go in there, and especially going in there and playing, and then you see Stevie Yzerman and like a lot of guys walking around. So it was neat for us as young players.
How cool was it to represent Italy at the Olympics?
It was pretty neat. Like that was, I would say one of my bigger highlights of my career. I got a lot that different stages in my career, and that was pretty amazing, right? So getting called, not even being on the radar of the team, because at the time the coach didn't know who I was, or he came over, and so I was kind of left off the team for a year, and then get the call up to saying, like, you're going to try out. I had 2 chances. It was one in November, one in late October and one in November. And so in November, my dad's uncle had passed away, and he's kind of like my grandfather that did. So I was kind of torn. Do I go to this camp and try out, or do I go? And so like I ended up staying and getting that call January or December 23rd saying I'm on the Olympic team. And I didn't get back for the funeral, but I kind of, I was going, I dedicated my Olympics where it was my family, my Iob family. So it was to get called, it's unreal, right? Just that excitement, like a kid opening a gift, right? Like I remember, I was 36 at the time, and I'm walking down the street and I'm smiling. I couldn't stop smiling. And I pick up my kid, and my son's looking at me, he goes, "Dad, why are you smiling?" "I'm going to the Olympics." "Well, what's that, Dad?" But no, it was definitely a huge highlight in my career.
What led you to Europe, where obviously you spent the bulk of your pro career?
After my first year, I was playing Rochester and Erie. I was up and down, and then ended up playing at the end in Rochester throughout the Calder Cup playoffs. And at that time, I was going to go to Tampa the next year. And basically, the deal was done. I was going to go there, go to Atlanta and play. And Colin Miller, my centerman, was actually in Atlanta at the time, and he was really pushing for me. And Milan, out of the blue, just sent me this saying that they wanted me to come over. I'm like, I didn't even know Milan had hockey. It was, you didn't even know. But they sent me over a contract, and I couldn't believe, the money figure for one, it was tax free, and I get to play in Italy. So I said, well, let's give it a go. I signed a 2-year contract, and ended up going over and never coming back. So I came back a few times to play in playoffs and try out for Tampa as a 30-year-old, but it was too old. So they say. Yeah. But but the team I ended up playing for, Milan, AC Milan, which is owned by Berlusconi at the time, which is the soccer team, the same AC Athletic Club Milan. So we were treated like the soccer players. We'd go in the night before, even if we played only 2 hours down the road, and have this dinner, wake up in the morning, have a little skate. We'd stay the next night again, and then we'd go back on the bus. So everyone was very, very calm and, down to earth with them, right? They didn't want to stress us out. You didn't want to sit on a bus before a game too long. So it was pretty incredible. And then, like, starting my career over there like that.
Did you guys get paid the same amount of money as the players on AC Milan?
I wish. I wouldn't be doing tile work right now, that's for sure.
How was, like, you obviously enjoyed it, you stayed over there for a while, but how was the transition to being overseas?
It was different, right? Like, again, right? We didn't have social media. It was like I got over, and I don't even think I called my parents for like 2-3 days after. And they're probably wondering what the heck's going on. I get picked up on a bus. I get dropped off in this huge apartment. and we'll come and pick you up when we need to. Well, over there, it's called the Federal Augusta, which means everything in August is closed. And they didn't leave us money. They didn't tell us anything. And, we were just kind of left on our own. And we were sitting in the apartment going, okay, what the heck am I doing? And I was eating out of this little cafe bar, eating these little pastries and little pizzas, and not speaking a word of Italian. And but then all of a sudden it just picked up. They picked me up one day, and then all of a sudden I'm going to France for training camp, right? So we've ended up in France to Switzerland and up into Berlin. That was our training camp for 2 weeks on the road.
That's amazing. Like
That's
we used to say, join the army, see the world. Play pro hockey, see the world.
Yeah. Like I remember somebody when I think I was around 30, and they said, keep playing as long as you can. Once you quit, that's, you always regret it. And I still regret it. I did have a chance. I was 38 when I did, come back to Canada, and I do regret it. I did have chances, but then my kids got settled in, into school and stuff. And then I said, oh, somebody will offer me a contract and shit, and it never came. Right. So I still believe I could play at 51.
You look like you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did your style of game, I know it didn't change too much, but did your style of game change a bit when you went overseas?
It didn't the first year because I kind of was that getting, still had to do it in Rochester and Erie, right? Like I think in Erie I played 20 games, I had 200 minutes, right? Like it was unreal how many times I fought there. But that was a different thing, right? Again, being on a two-way contract, playing against guys that were on three-way contracts, or getting $100 a week or whatever. Now all of a sudden they want to take a fight at you, right? So over there, my first year I had a ton. I think I had 250 penalty minutes my first year over there, and then I was always a half decent good skater, but then I just became that much better, bigger ice, better coaching, techniques over there, stuff like that. You had different practices that would teach you your edges, forcing you to go forwards or backwards and stuff like that. So there was definitely a change in my game as I went on.
Even though you're not playing, and probably still could, you've stayed so close to the game that you've done some coaching for a number of years. In fact, how do you like being behind the bench? I
do. I love being behind the bench. I love the development of the kids, right? I love to see, I would rather take an underdog team and see how far we could go. I ended up coaching in Renfrew Junior B, and we won twice the Eastern, not Eastern Ontario, but the Valley Championships, and with fourth place teams. And we, hats off to the kids. They just bought in, and we went. And they were easy to coach. And I coached some of the junior A's around here, and it's just a different level of hockey that they're all kind of, as soon as there's a little bit of adversity, well, I got to go to another team. They're all looking for that scholarship. So it was a little bit difficult for that, trying to get them to believe into what I had. But to get behind the bench, I love it. I love, I'm still trying to get back into it now, especially with after the COVID here for the last couple of years. It's been, pretty hard. I'm a coach mentor for the Nepean team, or Nepean Association. And, that's a lot of fun too. So instead of coaching the kids, I'm coaching the coaches. So, we do a lot of development of off ice. We do a lot of meetings and stuff just to go over things. They ask a lot of questions, and we do the skates at the beginning of the year, and the coaches end up loving them because now all of a sudden they're saying, oh, I'm going to take this to my men's hockey league, so it's just the small little things to teach them.
Overseas, it can get kind of crazy. And I wanted your point of view on the story where fans were throwing stuff on the ice and then you pick something up. I wanted to hear the story from your point of view.
So when I was burning people alive, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
So we were playing Bolzano in the finals, and they were throwing lighters on the ice. So you got a picture back then, everybody, you could smoke, you could drink, whatever you wanted. And there was this, our rink, there was a film of smoke that would just linger over the like you would see the stands. As the night went on, you couldn't see the fans anymore because the cigarette smoke would come down. So
That's wild.
yeah, it was like you had to start skating, and like it was so muggy too, right? Like we're playing in April, May, or sorry, March, April, so it's already 20 some odd degrees there, right? So these rinks are just boiling. And our goalie ended up coming back to the bench, and we have a delayed penalty, and he touches the referee, and you can see the referee look to the side, and pretends to fall down. And we're like, everybody's kind of looking at him, what the hell are you doing? Our goalie gets kicked out of the game. So we ended up losing in the finals because our backup goalie went in, but because he got suspended. So anyways, during this game, our fans all threw the lighters on the ice, and I picked one up, and the guy was standing there, and I'm like, at the time, Beavis and Butthead were these famous guys, hang, fire. So I picked up the lighter, and all I was doing was pretending to do it, and the guy I was doing with was a guy I knew, and he was laughing, and then all of a sudden, like a week later, because it took that long, in the hockey news, I was trying to light somebody on fire. So also made it in a trivia book too. What did Tony Iob do? Did he sing with Pavarotti, marry a model, do something else, or light a guy on fire?
It's the damn media, Tony. That's the problem. It's the damn media.
It is the media. Yeah, they twist your words.
I'm just curious what you thought when you saw it in the hockey news, because back then, as you mentioned, no Twitter. All of a sudden, you see it in the hockey news. You tried to light a guy on fire. You're like, what? That's not what I was trying to do.
I remember my dad seeing it here because he was over in Italy at the time, and he's seen it. And then when he got home, he's giving me, like, Jesus Christ, what are you doing? Like, you're trying to light the guy on fire. And I go, Dad, I wasn't trying to light him on fire. His jersey's soaking wet. How is he gonna, light on fire? And the next year after that, I ended up going to Germany and Cologne. And Bob Murdoch was my coach at the time, and he says, "Well," and I learned it from him. And he says, "Well, any media is good media." Like I said, "You sure?" Because I think I lit this guy on fire,
What was the caliber of hockey like in Europe while you were playing?
My first years was probably better in the American League. You had a lot of guys over there. You had Gates Orlando, Sean Evans, a lot of guys that could be playing in the Mario Chironi, Joe Basillo ended up going over. Tons of guys were over there with, Canadian and Italian that had passports or not. And it was, what I played in the American League, these guys would, be NHL guys or, American League for sure.
Representing Italy at the Olympics, you talked about it, but I'm curious what it was like to play Canada during that Olympics in the room, because with all due respect, everyone expected Canada to beat Italy. What was it like in the room before you're playing a powerhouse like that, or even Finland in that Olympics? They won gold.
I think we just took them as a game, right? We knew that, we were always the underdogs. It didn't matter through all my career playing, world championships, we were always the underdogs. We played them earlier in other games, obviously not with that many NHL guys that we lost 2-1, 3-1 to them a couple of years at the Worlds. And rightfully we should have won. I remember Steve Sullivan saying to me, you guys probably should have won that game. What a great game. But you're in the room and you just take it as the game, get by, let's just keep playing our game. You never know what could happen. Right. And, like we had a goalie coach that told us all about Berger and where you should shoot and this and that. And, I came down my first shift and I hit the post, it went right by him on the ice, hit the post. And, and I remember that, so, but it was a battle, right? Like, and they didn't they didn't have a great tournament that year, right? So, and it was great to see Adam Foote was there, like he was playing for Team Canada. So, I hadn't seen him since, we were 20, right? Or 18, I was 19 at the time when I played with him.
That makes me think about those friendships that you made while playing, and it seems to be a kind of a recurring theme on this podcast that if teams win championships together, that bond lasts so much longer. How many of the guys are you still in touch with, if any, from the Sioux teams? I mean,
not a lot of guys, but you always like Jason Denemy or Colin Miller always reach out, a lot of, Chris Simon, but if we're all in the same room, there's not that time lapse, it's like, oh my God, I don't remember this guy. You go right back into where you were with these guys, right? And that's what I found. We had I was saying we had that tribute with Maverty, and there was a good chunk of guys there, and it felt like normal. There was no awkwardness or nothing, you're talking to them, Warshi was there, it was just, it's easy, right? With these guys, when you have that, bond or, just a teammates, right? Like that's kind of what you have, that you can't take away there, and you can't explain it. You can't, I don't think you can, it's just that way, Joe Basillo, I'm very good friends with Joe. We stay in contact, quite a bit, right? So, and there's other guys that, like Kevin Hodson, I haven't talked to, but I'm sure if we ran into each other, we'd sit there and talk for hours, right?
You mentioned Hodson. It's a great little segue to my next question, because I'm curious, as a guy who played with such passion in their game, how difficult was it watching Cameron be a goalie? You were a goalie, Dad.
Oh my God. The kid could skate. The kid, he grew up in Europe. He grew up skating, and he always wanted to be a goalie because he always was attracted to it. A lot of kids are. So he was always, and I blame it when I was playing in Bolzano, and Gunther Hall was actually part of the Olympic team as well. And he was always over at our house and that, and Cameron became very good friends with him. And every time we're in the room, and Cameron, at the time, we would just bring the kids to the rink, and that's where Cam grew up, was in our dressing room. And that was where he just the helmet and gloves on all the time. Dad, I want to be goalie. No, Dad, no. And I kept him out of it as long as I could. And I was playing in Switzerland after a year in Klagenfurt, and I went to for the playoffs in Switzerland, and they said, no, we'll put him in. And all of a sudden, oh my God. So I went out on the ice and I shot pucks. I was hitting him in the shoulder, and you could see him, and the tears are coming down, but he didn't want to say anything. So I'd shoot it on and knock him down and back up again. I said, oh, all right, what am I going to do? So no, the kid could skate like the wind, and he ended up in the nets. So
that's wild. I love it. That connects to something else I had wanted to ask you, because I know he was a good friend of your son, and it was a tough loss and a tough story. But tell me about Alex Paquette.
It's a tough one. It's still, obviously, it's on my son's mind every birthday of his, and and he was, when we came back to Renfrew, Cameron, became pretty good friends with him, and we drove him a lot. Like he was, the joke was that he was my second son, right? Like he was always with us, always in the car, and we pick him up. And just a little story about Alex. He was in the back seat, and I could see him moving, looking. He goes, Coach, how do you get your hair like that? Oh, you just got to keep slicking it back. Make sure you slick it back. So next couple of days, we're going to a game, and I look in the back, and I could see him with this little smile, and he's got the gel in his hair, and it's slicked back, and I go, good hair. And he goes, thanks. He was, and I always remember that little smirk and smile. And he was such a funny kid, outgoing kid that it was sad. It was obviously sad for both boys. Especially going in and seeing him, and to say goodbye to him. I took Cameron in, and he looked normal. He still had his hair slicked back, and he was just lying there, and he said our goodbyes. The end with him, the funny story was that he was at school, and I guess he called another kid stupid or whatever, and the teacher says to him, he says, you say you're sorry, you don't call him stupid. And he looks over at the kid and says, I'm sorry you're stupid. So that was his humor. So no, he led a lot of guys. My son and him were very close, and we have a lot of good stories about Alex.
Tough to ask a question after that, because it's such a great story about a young man gone too soon. You talked about your son and his friendship. I'm curious if there was a guy you played with, whether it was in junior or whether it was overseas or something, like your best teammate that you know, as a guy who was often protecting players, I'm sure everybody liked you, but I'm just curious on if there was that friendship that you didn't know a player before going to a team, you got to meet him and just really liked him.
I think Gunther Hell, talk about the goalie that Cameron became friends. He became we became very close. I played in Vipiteno and he played in Bolzano as well. So we were always there, and then national team. So, he became a very good friend. He ended up sending Cameron over and this tractor, but it was one of the ones you sit on. And I'm like, what do you so I had to go down to customs in Toronto to pick it up, but it sat there for like 2 months and they wanted like $3,000 for holding fees. And I'm like, I'm not giving you $3,000 for this tractor. Anyways, long story short, like the grandmother ended up getting someone to go in and buy it for like $1,200 because we knew that, poor Gunther sent this over for Cameron for his birthday, right? So, it's the most expensive toy tractor you've ever seen, so Gunther was a great team guy. There's always Alex Weinridge in Milan, Mike DeAngelis, phenomenal defenseman. Very close with him still. He's actually down in Arizona. That's how I ended up in the West Coast League in 99, 2000. He was already down there playing, and I ended up going down just to keep on my skates, and we ended up winning the championship down there. Great friend, great hockey guy. He's working within the Coyotes organization now, and I should have stayed down there.
Yeah, winters are a little tougher up here, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, are they getting tough, eh?
Oh,
I get old too. I used to be able to skate all hours, and it didn't matter what temperature. Now I look outside, I see snow. I go, I can't go out there.
Yeah, not today. Wait for a different one. I love those connections though from the game that keep you moving through it to different places, and it's fantastic to hear. Before Poper asks his inevitable, just one more question. Let's just say it comes to pass that the Kingston Frontenacs meet the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds in the OHL final. Who is Tony Iob cheering for?
I have to say the Sioux. I'd have to take the Sioux. They, they took me up there. They treated me. Not that Kingston didn't treat me well, but we got more. I think I have more connections up there, right? Like it's just. I shouldn't say I have more connections. I have that winning thing. You want them to win. Kingston, we had 1 year that I think we could have won if we would have got through Belleville. I think we did well, but you know what? Doesn't matter. Like the guys in Kingston are great, and the guys in the Sioux are great, right?
I'm going to ask a two-parter. One, I was just curious. I know. I was curious on your fighting style. Like if you're getting in a fight, were you the type of guy that was just like, I'm just going to fight until something happens? Or did you have a strategy going in? And then two, when you just look back, like 18 years pro career, 2 OHL championships, what did the game of hockey, or what does the game of hockey mean to you?
You love it. Like I absolutely love it, right? Like I grew up teachers telling me you're never going to play in the NHL. You're not going to go anywhere. I remember being in Armpire at a hockey school, and Brown, that actually he ended up coaching Ottawa 67s. I remember he was the guy. He was playing in St. Louis at the time. The big head guy he told me I should quit hockey. So hockey was my life. I played it. I'm still passionate. I still play men's league. I still like to score. I don't take the crap. I should say I take it more now than I used to. Just because, what are you going to do? Wake up in the morning with a black eye from men's hockey league, So,
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Be cool, eh?
It's a good story.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Yeah.
When you went into fights, though, did you have a strategy, or were you just, let the wires cross and see what happens?
with the visors, I learned to kind of reach up and try to grab their chin strap or the ear loop and kind of pull on it. I pull them in tight and then try to get their helmet off. I think I was pretty lucky on that. I got a lot of guys' helmets off, and I did that over, obviously as I got older in Rochester and Erie and stuff like that. When I did fight, I got those helmets off a lot quicker. I just seen a lot of. I remember Joey Coaster's knuckles, and I was watching those guys fight, and they're just hitting helmets. Even now, like the fights, as soon as there's anything that happens, the helmet comes off, and the referees are jumping in. I guess it's part of the game now. I guess they're okay with guys breaking their hands on helmets. So I don't know what the purposes of fighting anymore is.
That's why I love talking to guys from a bygone era that played the game just a wee bit differently, because Chris and I, and we talk about this a lot, still covering the league, Tony, like there's a place. And I think we went through an era where it might've gotten a little bit silly, but yeah, I tell you what, to your point, like, why do you even still have it? And I think there should be an element. There's still room for it somewhere in the game, for sure.
There is, and I think if you've taken so much out of it, right? Like you can't hit guys too hard now. You can't, like and I go back to Gary Lehman. We played against him. He was in over in Italy, and we're playing him in the playoffs. And I remember waiting for him to shoot as a right-hander, and I come straight across and blindside hit him. And I don't know how many times he'd be lying on the ice, just kind of looking up in the stars and get up, and he'd be out the next shift, right? So, it's just and obviously someone's going to hear this and they're going to say, oh, you're just out to hurt people, but it wasn't just me. Like, it was everybody. You had your head up, and it was always on a swivel, because you never knew. There's always someone that was tougher than you, for sure, and you just never knew if you were going to get hit.
A lot of guys that played that kind of style are, struggling with it now. Are you doing okay? All good?
Oh, I think so.
Seems to be.
Good.
I got my hair, so no, I'm good. Good. Obviously the body's. I think my body's sore. I do construction every day, contracting. So I'm obviously sore from that. But I'm overall, healthy. No, head's good. Still could think. Still remember. So once I start forgetting, then I guess we'll look at it. But you go back to concussions. I remember fighting a guy in Cornwall, and waking, kind of coming to beside him in the medical room, and we're both looking at each other going like, what happened? I think we fought, and like get stitched up, go back out, sit on the bench, like how many fingers? One. I had two, but you're good. Get going, just a very, very different. Obviously you need to protect people, you need to, take that element, I guess, out of the game and let them, if there's contact, yes, but the elbows to the child, you look at Scott Stevenson, how he would come across that blue line, and remember that Korea hit, but Gretzky got hit like that too. It's you don't want to see guys, good players like that being taken out, but keep your head up.
Your head up. You also can't mention Cornwall without me making my weekly appeal. Let's get the Royals back in this league. Come on.
Let's get the Royals. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when I coached the junior here, you always go into Cornwall, and I always go, why is there not a team here? They got a lot of support there. So who knows? You never know.
It's true.
It costs too much though to bring a team in now.
That's a very good point. Yeah, no, it's definitely not cheap.
No, it's a lot different. It's a lot different hockey now for kids. I feel sorry for them, right? Like, you look at the cost for them, right? So
absolutely,
we got paid to play. We got a few little bucks. We got free pants and free that. Now you got to pay for your sticks. You got to pay for. I'm not, maybe not in the OHL, but getting to there, right? So it's a different type of hockey.
Well, Tony, thanks so much for joining us. This was great. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's great bringing up all those memories.
And just one for old time's sake, 35 years ago in the Memorial Auditorium in Kitchener. Hey, 10B, bingo. It wasn't me, but I thought it was pretty good.
I don't know. You brought it up a couple of times. It might have been you.
I outed myself on this. Tony, it's been great. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys. Take care.